my like family dog that I grew up with, he passed away a couple of years ago. But he was, oh my God, he was just had the neighbor dog that every day, same thing. They would like run up along the fence barking and like chasing
a rivalry.
But it's like, it's a rivalry, but they're also best friends, and
they love it.
It's like animal. It's very like a magical experience to witness the way that animals live, because they're not like overthinking anything ever. They're not really thinking about anything, which is a gift, you know, like, and it's just a different lifestyle. But like, there's like, they're enemies, but they're also friends. And it's like, really, there's not that much difference. Like you're devoting a lot of energy to this person regardless if they're your enemy.
Like you're blowing people's minds right now. I just felt it. Like there's not that big a difference between your enemies and your friends. Like, oh my gosh, like break that apart real quick. Because yeah, I agree.
Devoting energy to the person, and they provide you entertainment and take up space in your life. You know, like it's really not that much different.
Wild.
And that's what we say too, like our soul family is like, you know, the people who you have the best connections with, and the people who bring you the most blessings in life, and you feel so blessed that they like crossed your path. And it's also the people who push your buttons the most, and they're your troublemakers, and like
the ones you get real hung up on. Oh yeah, the hung up on-ness is your shadow work working out. Like they wouldn't be all up in your shit if you didn't have something that needed to be healed. That's how my spiritual awakening started, was like a troublemaker who was dancing on my buttons, and I was
but like
see, break down to break through kind of thing.
Exactly. Like that person came to honestly do you a service by being such a troublemaker in your life. Like it opened doors for you that probably in that moment felt not good, and you were like, let's get this person out of my life. But then, you know, once you have enough space between there and now, you can look back and see like they opened doors for me. And like they were, I think pretty much everyone who comes into our life is both a blessing and a lesson, but some people are more one than the other. And people, it's maybe even the greatest service of all, like the people who come in and are lessons for us that help put us on our highest path.
Yeah. For real. I mean, you think about like superheroes, for example, like everybody wants superpowers and shit, but like superheroes fight villains. So like if there was no villain, like is there a superhero? Like it's like that duality. Like duality is just inherent in life, like the light and the dark, like they go together. So
yeah. That was like a conversation that was popping off in the chat one time during one of the Astrology and Coffee live streams. It was like a very early one of those where a couple of people were talking about like someone was saying they wished that we could experience like utopia basically, and like that we're heading in that direction. And then the other person was arguing that, it's funny that this is happening all in the chat, but was just arguing that you know, like the more light and all the good stuff, like it attracts darkness to it. Like there's always going to be like
balance.
It's about balance. Exactly. So it's like, you careful what you wish for, basically. Like don't be so quick to wish away all of the negative stuff, because it's going to be there no matter what. And if you like are, I don't know, I mean, of course we can have like a more ideal society and a better world than we do now, but there's always going to be darkness. And like if there's superheroes, there has to be villains, you know, like there's always going to be that other side of the coin, because like the masculine and the feminine, like they really cannot, they're so intertwined, they can't exist without each other.
I heard somebody say the other day talking about masculine feminine and said it's like the North and South pole of the planet. And I always found this kind of stuff super boring, so I didn't remember this from school, but like it's like they're magnetized, and that's what causes the earth to rotate. And so like if you didn't have that balance, that duality, that magnetized of like opposites, you wouldn't have rotation. You would have like Mercury, like where one side is the hottest planet in the solar system and the other side's the coldest planet in the solar system. It's like, what? Like that's because we have rotation. So the fact that we have both, like it's it's perfect. And like a better world is usually more a matter of like tuning your own frequency.
Yeah.
It's like all we can ever do. Like we can't change the frequency of anything or anybody outside of ourselves.
Right.
And like changing our own frequency does change the world. So
Yeah.
it's like an individual mission or action or like orientation to,
Yeah.
yeah,
You have
better
to
is
go
inside.
inward. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Like they say, as above, so below, like fix your below, you're within. If you focus on that, like you literally do change the world around you.
It's
And
real.
it's it's all inner work. It's the only work there is inner work. That's the work that really matters anyway. And it's the work that follows you from lifetime to lifetime. Like
Right.
there's that song I put on like the earth playlist, but it's called Cemetery, and it's just funny because the song it's like a story about well, he never spent any time with his family, but he was the richest man in the cemetery, and it's
Very
like kind
catchy.
of like that very catchy song, that kind of like wealth, that physical material wealth, that if you like, not to say that that's not a part of life and being human and living, and we all experience the physical world, but there is a lot like that's not even close to being the most important thing that we do here in life. And like if you build up your empire, you're still going to die, and like what do you have? What did you gain? I mean, maybe you gained a lot of incredible soul evolution through your journey in building a physical empire. I'm not saying that's not possible, but like,
that's real.
There's a lot of damage sometimes done.
I mean, you and I both are of the Neptune and Capricorn generation. Yeah. And that basically says like our spiritual path is in building earthly structures. And that in doing that, we're actually living out the soul evolution that we intended.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of that looks like Neptune generations in general. I find them very fascinating. Neptune is very illusory, hard to understand. That's just the nature of Neptune. So it more like reveals itself to you in its own time. And this Neptune and Capricorn generation, when you look across the 14 years or however long Neptune was in Capricorn, it's like the people born during that generation, they are both perpetrating some of like the worst business practices I've ever seen. And they are introducing ethical business practices unlike the world has ever seen.
Yeah.
And that there is this shift that is happening. It's like bringing to light like the worst of what's already here. And from that, being inspired to do it better, to like do business in an ethical way, to have standards, to not just buy something because it's on the market, but to actually look like, how is that produced? How is it made? Did the people who make it, did they get paid fairly? Did you steal it from them and now you're selling it to me? Like when you buy stuff that's created with that energy, you're perpetuating that energy on the planet. So like ethical business standards is like a whole thing in my world, in my focus of like, it's really shifted like the things I buy and how I spend my money and how I vote with my dollars for which energy on this planet is the energy that I want to see. We have like, I was listening to a podcast the other day that says like we have two main votes in this world. One is our money and one is our time, the things that we choose to pay attention to. And you got to make sure that like you're putting your energy into things that you want more of on the planet. That's why I think it's fascinating that you're like enemies and friends. They're basically the same thing because you're giving a lot of energy to that. Yeah. And basic law of attraction, like, do you want that? Like, is that what you want? Or is that where your momentum is? Because there's nothing wrong with that. That's normal, that we always are waking up inside of old patterns that this is outdated. This isn't who I am anymore. This doesn't serve my highest good. I know better. And yet I'm still kind of in this loop. So like, I feel like that's really perpetually where we live. Yeah. It's like waking up inside of old patterns and reaching for something that does serve your highest good as often as you can be aware of that. So
yeah. Yeah, that's so true. It's like I keep saying, like energy follows intention. So what are you thinking about? Like where you give your precious life force energy to is perpetuating that thing.
Yeah.
So like, and I think it like that's not to say like I do think it's really important, like because I'm thinking about like the news. Like let's say watching the news, it's like not exactly uplifting, But it is also yeah.
Yeah.
But it's also like good that a lot of stuff is coming up about like a lot of the institutions and organizations and whatever that exist in the world, like a lot of the stuff that's like icky that we're hearing about these days, like that needs to come out,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't need to focus our energy there. Like, like let's let these things come out and let them go, because they need to kind of come up and then be released. That's kind of the part I think that's hard for us, is it's really easy to like devote so much of our energy to like all this horrible stuff that's going on and all the things coming out about different people and places and whatever that's disheartening or whatever it is. Easy to give our energy to that, but like that's not how we're gonna move past it.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like to have a productive relationship with it where, I mean, the whole point that we came into the physical is that we want the contrast. We want to launch rockets of desire and expand this universe. Like we want that. And that only happens through seeing what we don't want. And that lets us give birth to knowing what we do want. So it's like, how long are you spending in that process of just looking at what you don't want? How quickly can you jump to what clarity is this giving birth to?
Mm-hmm.
When I look at war, for a really extreme example, you want peace more specifically and more powerfully and deeper and more personally than you've ever wanted it before. And so it's like, are you hating on the war or are you wanting peace? Because those are two very different things.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is productive relationship. Like how can you take what happened, like this negative thing that came up or this emotional hit that you took, and be like, okay, so what is this showing me? What do I actually want? What is this helping me to realize? And moving into that space, it's productive now, because now you're putting your energy, you're spending your precious life force energy towards what you want and driving more energy into that.